The Vikings should draft a corner in the 2023 NFL draft. Here are our top 5. Moving on through our 2023 NFL draft preview, we get on to one that everybody talks about for this team every season, it feels like, and that is cornerback. I mean, obviously, in the NFL, cornerback is one of the most important positions to have talent at.
Right.
We've tried drafting over the years. We know Zimmer was a big cornerback guy. Kwesi took a couple last year. I mean, with injuries, we haven't seen those ones pan out. Obviously, picking up Byron Murphy this offseason after letting Patrick Peterson and fan favorite Duke Shelley walk.
Right.
So obviously you do feel like you need a little more help there. I would like to add a veteran, but also I have no issues adding another young guy, maybe even 2, depending on if we can wheel and deal and get a couple more draft picks. But I mean, definitely you got to take one. And, as us watching through some of these guys, there's a ton of talent here. A ton of top end talent that, you look at our top 5, there's a good chance all 5 of these or 4 of the 5 could be gone before the Vikings even get a chance to grab one.
Yeah. I would say I like this. I like this draft, this cornerback draft, better than last year. I mean, otherwise, other than Sauce, I think Sauce is the best corner out of both these drafts. But other than Sauce and Singletary, it was kind of like a big drop, or Stingley. I mean, it was a big drop off kind of. And with this, I feel like these top 4, I think you could almost put them all over the place in certain areas, or certain situations. But
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I would totally be down for the Vikings grab one of these guys, and yeah, man, ton of talent. So let's hop right in.
Let's do that. Before we do that, though, I want to thank everyone for watching the GG Sports podcast of the Minnesota Vikings. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notifications, the bell for notifications for our videos. We give away Justin Jefferson rookie cards on all our live shows. So definitely hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you can jump in those and join us with the fun on that. Let's jump into the cornerback. Starting at number 5,
we have Mississippi State's Emmanuel Forbes.
We agreed on
Emmanuel Forbes. The first thing you noticed with him was the size, height wise, 6'1".
Yeah.
I mean, this is what you look for in a prototypical corner. Issue. He weighs 166 pounds, right? Like that is definitely part of the issue. And you might notice another tall, slim Mississippi State product that has been on the Vikings as of late. His nickname was the Needle coming out of college with Cam Dantzler. You see a lot of similarities due to that size and their ability, but with Forbes, like everything kind of speaks for itself with him. Ball hawk is the first thing I would say when it comes to Emmanuel Forbes.
Playmaker.
Career, 14 interceptions, 6 of them returned to the house. Just 3 of them this last season out of his 6 picks were returned for touchdowns. I really like what I saw from him. Physical guy. I mean, obviously big speed, absolute speed, which we'll get into in a little bit here when we kind of look through his combine stuff. But yeah, man, Emmanuel Forbes is a real talent in this draft. I really like what I saw from him.
Yeah, I liked him. I mean, he's like, even though he has a small frame, he's not afraid to tackle at all. He was trying to lay some big hits, which I really liked it from seeing from him. The big thing with him is, like you said, it's his size, man. The 160, what was it? 166 at 6'1". He's lengthy. I do like the length, but he's small. Like you were saying, he's actually a little bit smaller than Cam Dantzler even, which, I mean, isn't good. And you mentioned this before we hopped on here. It's like, against guys like the Devontae Adams and those kind of guys, like that could be an issue for him. And I think that's a reason why he's even dropped, but like he's kind of dropped in this draft, or why he's looked at so low. I mean, some people have him going all the way into like the 3rd round or late 2nd round. But man, his production is insane. Like if he was 20 pounds heavier, which is a lot, even 10 pounds, if he was 10 pounds heavier, I think people have him in the 1st round. No questions asked in my mind. And even that being said, I'll even bring up some stats of his. Last year, he had an 87.2 overall grade with an 89.3 in coverage, which is what we're looking for big time now that we have Flores, because we really need those outside coverage cornerbacks in our system with him in the mix. Played 12 games. He allowed 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions this year. He ended up scoring 3 of those touchdowns, dropped 2 interceptions, 8 missed tackles, 12 coverage stops, 9 forced incompletions, and then average depth of target, 10.7. But yeah, I mean, just the stats by itself, man, 6 interceptions. That is high. That is more interceptions than any of these like double the interceptions at least than any of these cornerbacks that we have in ahead of them. And none of those guys even had a touchdown this season, at least. And I only have a couple in their entire college career, let alone 3 in just this season and 6 in his entire year. So, I mean, the stats show a lot there, and it's not just the stats. And I'll let you go through this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But he also had a showing in his combine.
I mean, and Jamie, he kind of said it before we hopped on here, like he could afford to add a couple pounds because he doesn't need that 4.35 speed. It's nice, but if he puts on another 10, 15 pounds and that drops to say a 4.4, I don't think anyone's going to be upset.
Yeah, and even 1.48 10-yard split is really good. I mean, 1.5 is like the standard for these cornerbacks. So he was able to beat that. And a very, very solid 37.5 vert and then 10-inch 11 or 10-foot 11-inch rod. So, I mean, you mix all those stats that I showed with his combine, he does. And if you just didn't even look at it, you have to. You didn't look at his weight or his size or whatever. He looks elite. That's elite production. That's elite combine performance, elite athleticism. And it really just comes down to being 6'1" and 166 pounds,
right?
Which could be a problem, but everything else checks out.
Absolutely. But of course, you know, we had to look at the player comparisons. Cam Dantzler was his player comparison, which definitely makes sense there. But
and
man,
I want to also say the one thing about that real quick is Cam Dantzler actually was like 10 pounds heavier than him at least, but Cam Dantzler ran a 4.64 at the combine. A 4.35 to a 4.64 is a massive difference. So you can't compare him too much, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, man, I mean, exactly what you're looking for in an outside corner type as well. Speaking of comparisons, when I was kind of going over some of these guys, I noticed that Travius Hodges-Tomlinson out of TCU, a guy probably be a mid-round pick. Yeah. His NFL comparison was Duke Shelley. So Vikings fans maybe are saying, let's just wait till the middle of the draft and grab him.
And we like him a lot too. He's just 5'8".
Yeah, he's very
like
small.
Duke Shelley. But hey, we've seen Duke Shelley step up. Even though I can't, like, if we pass on Duke Shelley, it's almost hard to believe that we're just gonna go get another 5'8". You know?
Yeah, I mean, and I think a guy like Forbes might be a guy that Flores wants, a bigger, you know.
He's a guy that I feel like could be a kind of a higher risk but high reward type of situation because it's just his size, man. It's just his size.
Absolutely.
But
moving on.
Yeah, number 4.
You want to talk about size and a little bit of aggressiveness. You're talking about Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. And when I talk about size,
Joey Porter Sr., obviously, but ex-NFL player, good NFL player.
But the first thing that jumped off the page to me when I watched Joey Porter Jr. was just big and lanky. Then you look up his size, 6'2.5", 34-inch arms. I mean, like right away when you look at that, you're like, this is a guy that I would love to see on the Minnesota Vikings. Thought he was aggressive and physical in coverage as well. Quick feet and instinctual to get to the ball when he needs to. I liked a lot of what I saw from him, and as I said, it was just the size first off really just jumped off the page. Playing at Penn State in the Big Ten, going against some of those big time players. I just looked at him right up and I said, the Vikings find a way to get this guy, I would be pumped. I think he's easily going to be a first round pick. Yeah, man, just you love the traits. It's physical, aggressive. He fits the Flores scheme for sure.
Yeah, big, like you said, really big. That's what stands out right away. And I know he ran, we'll dive into his combine a little bit in a bit, but he ran a 4.46. So his athleticism still checks out, especially for his size, which I really do like. You know, I think another thing that I really did like about him is when watching some of his tape, they did line him up for blitzes and he had a couple sacks in his career, which I do like to see that kind of be able to kind of have that option from a cornerback, especially a big one and strong one like him. Speaking of strong, I know we're going to get into stats, but I want to say right away, he had a 17 bench press at the combine, which is huge for a cornerback. So he's strong, physical, tall, big. That's what we like about Joey Porter. Let me dive into some stats here. So his stats aren't as intriguing as even Forbes was. So 73.2 overall with a 77.4 coverage grade. He only played 10 games, so I'm not sure if he kind of got hurt or maybe he did earlier in the season, something like that. I don't really know on that for sure, but he didn't allow any touchdowns, but he also didn't have any interceptions. It looks like he just had one in his career. So as far as like getting interceptions go, that's not a great sign. But dropped interception, even though, I mean, maybe they just don't target him because he didn't drop an interception either. 12 forced fumbles, 4 coverage stops, average depth of target 8.9. His run defensive grade wasn't too great, but man, he's with his size and his talent and who his dad is definitely probably helps a little bit.
Oh, absolutely.
I would be happy if this guy dropped to us. I would definitely take a chance on him. I think he is that kind of guy that Flores would like in that defense, like you said.
For sure. But as you were talking about that 4.46 640, which is solid, 1.5 10-yard split, 35-inch vertical jump, and 10'9" broad jump. And then there, of course, there's those 19 bench press reps that you're talking about there. But man, just right here, this is the big thing for me: 6'2", 34-inch arm, and a half. Yep, 34-inch arms. Just the frame,
10-inch hands.
Yep. Just get him in there with Brian Flores, man, and I've. Some exciting stuff right there. I would really, yeah. I
would be really. I think I'd be more excited if we got one of these other guys that we got on our list, though.
But I think obviously there's a ton to like there. But yeah, let's move on to our number 3. So here's where we get a little bit different. We kind of it's the same few players, but just kind of intermixed here. I put Christian Gonzalez at number 3. I didn't know exactly what to expect when I watched this guy. I mean, I saw he was. What'd you say he was? I know you said he was pretty young.
Yeah, so he's 20. So that's what big thing about him. He's 20. PFF does the point thing. So he's 20.7, meaning he's 20 3/4, meaning by the season starts, he'll be just turning 21.
Yeah.
So he's young. He's really young. And the fact that he's as talented as he is now and as good as he is now, and knowing that even I had a real, I might as well say it now. I had a real struggle deciding between Christian Gonzalez and Deonte Banks. Spoiler for my number 1, but I had a real hard decision between them. I didn't know who to pick, and I ended up rolling with Christian Gonzalez age difference because he's 2 years younger than Deonte Banks, and I felt like I really liked them both about the same. So the fact that he's only turning 21 but by the season start or right before the season, I kind of gave him the upper hand on that, but I'll let you keep going now.
Yeah, man, it's looking at Gonzalez as well. Size 6'1", 32-inch arms. I thought, right off the page, fast. I thought he seems aggressive in coverage. He in the plays that I watch, I mean, it's kind of watching some highlight videos and stuff. Obviously, it's meant to make a player look good, but he looked big. He always looked like he was around the football. And like I said, the speed. This guy is fast. We're talking another 4.3 guy, 4.3 840, which is fantastic, and he still has good size, 197. I hadn't heard much about this kid until I kind of started looking into him, and it sounds like he's going to be an absolute stud. Some people are saying, the way that NFL.com their draft profiles have it graded out. From what I saw, he's one of the only ones with a year 1 starter grade on him. It's all like you said. He's young. He can still be sculpted. He'll continue to improve, but he's got all the raw potential you're looking for. But you can't teach size. You can't teach speed. He has both of those. I'm sure when we get into his PFF stuff, I'm sure we'll see he played pretty well. A ton to like with this guy.
Yeah, I agree. And just like comparing him to Deonte Forbes, Christian Gonzalez is 6'1", Deonte Banks. Christian Gonzalez 6'1", 197, and Deonte Banks is 6 foot 197, which is really big for cornerbacks. So for the fact, and Deonte Banks, I'll just spoil alert, ran 4.35. Just for the fact that they ran sub 4.4s at that size, they're pretty much the two biggest outside of like the height of Joey Porter. They weigh more than Joey Porter. So for them to clock in that kind of time with that size is extremely impressive. And back to Christian Gonzalez, though, he's very technical sound to me. Like he plays really great coverage. His tackling is really nice. He doesn't really, he seems to go low a lot on his tackles, which I think he can be good as far as like staying away from injury. So I think it's smart tackling and very controlled tackling, but you don't see like the monster hits out of him as much. Another thing that I really like about him is obviously I think his coverage is pretty damn good, but he is able to turn around for the interceptions. Like he still will go for the interceptions if the opportunity presents it for that, but he seems to be smart in choosing that. So that's something that I think is really important in Christian Gonzalez. And man, that guy, I do think he's a stud. I do see why some people have him as potential number 1 overall, but I'll dive into some stats on him.
Improved every season. That's what you like to see right there, honestly.
What's that?
He improved every season.
Oh yeah, improved every season. There. Yeah. And I think he changed schools. I'm pretty sure he
Yeah,
changed
he
schools.
started out at Buffalo, I think they said.
Okay. So last year, 83.3 overall grade, 83.9 coverage. He allowed 3 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure that's
I think that's
mean.
scored. I think that's how many touchdowns he scored, I want to say.
It's not. I looked into it.
Is it?
Yeah, because I started looking at other stats, like other stats websites, because I'm like, there's no way all these cornerbacks are getting like
scoring touch. Oh yeah,
scoring touchdowns. So that's why I looked at it, because I'm like, where the hell is touchdowns allowed? So I'm pretty positive it's touchdowns allowed. So 3 touchdowns allowed, because I don't think he has a touchdown actually scored. A lot of these guys didn't, besides Forbes. Interceptions 4, which is fantastic. Dropped interceptions 1, forcing completions 9. I also want to go back to real quick to Tomlinson, the 5'8" cornerback that we're talking about later. I just want to bring this up. He actually had 20 forced incompletions, which was first in college football. I do want to bring up that again, just in case we did decide to go get a new Shelley. So yeah, I mean, from a coverage standpoint, his grades are pretty damn good. He's 21 years old, not even, and elite speed and athleticism. And we'll let you go into that next here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll jump into some of that. As I said, 4.38 40, which is blazing fast, of course. 150 or 1.54 10-yard split, 41.5 vertical jump, and 11'1" broad jump, 14 bench press reps. The more I look at it, I almost feel like 3 is a little too low here. Size
for his age, man.
What doesn't he have? Size 197 pounds. Is that a little bit overshooting it? Sure, because that's kind of what they do with a lot of these weights. But either way, like whatever. 4.38 speed, like he's got everything you could want. I believe they had something from a personnel director down here. He's got size, he's strong, he can run, he's long. I want all of that. Just need to keep working on his craft. And he's 20 years old. So
yeah,
at this point, like he hasn't even reached the surface of what he can do as a football player. And
yeah. I also want to bring up his passing rating of 74.7. So he had a 74.7. I also want to bring, because I forgot, I don't know why I didn't say this, but 44.7 is what Forbes had. And Joey Porter had a 63.6 and Gonzalez had a 74.7. I just want to bring that up. So when we go into another player that we have, just to put that in comparison.
Yeah.
But yeah, but then now Deonte Banks, I mean, I guess I'll start with him. Deonte Banks, he, based off just watching like his tape and stuff, I had him as like number 2. Like I had him slightly, I liked what I saw a little bit better than Christian Gonzalez, and it really just came down to the age difference for me. But Deonte Banks, man, I mean, he's another guy that's a hard hitter, high energy. He looks really good in coverage on tape. But I also see him making big plays, like he's busting through the lines, swatting balls down, all that kind of stuff. And it's just that mixed with his size. And then you add in, and we're going to get into that, you add in his combine for a 6 foot, 197-pound quarterback. And it's pretty unbelievable to me. And I'll let you kind of dive into him a little bit more. I don't know if you want to do it now or later.
We'll do it later, because I got a good stat that I heard that I read somewhere that I want to talk about.
Okay. I'll do his stats and stuff right now, though. I'll do his stats and stuff right now. So Deonte Banks, do I have stats up right here? So he had a 72 overall grade, 74.3 in coverage, which obviously isn't that crazy impressive. Run defense grade 57.7. But man, when you see on tape, he's definitely a guy you watch on tape and you're liking it better than what his stats show on here. He allowed 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, dropped 1 interception, 13 forced incompletions, 6 coverage stops, 13.8 average depth of target, 1 missed tackle, 71.4 passer rating. But what it really comes in, man, you mix his tape with his athleticism. I'll let you go into his combine here.
Right. But also with him, like you look at some of those stats, but you also got to remember who he played against. They showed on there he played against Michigan. He played against did he play against Penn State last year? By the way, I'm not sure. Played against Purdue, played against Ohio State. Big Ten has a lot of competition, and he played against a lot of those guys. But yeah, as I said earlier, 6 foot, 197, 31 3/8-inch arms. Still ran a 4.35 40.
4.35,
man. That's nuts.
4.35. He ran a 4.35, 6'1", 197, or 6 foot 197.
42-inch vertical jump, 11'4" broad. Like
That's why it's so hard between him and
many
Gonzalez,
freakishly
man.
like just talented corners that have a lot of potential just because of their frame and what they can do athletically. Like
this guy's insanely athletic.
Absolutely.
Insanely athletic. 98 athletic score right there.
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Deonte Banks, which obviously as we kind of keep going through this, we'll talk about a little bit more here. But like I said, I'll bring up that stat when we kind of get into it. Moving on to our number 2s. My number 2 is Devin Witherspoon. Now, is it a little bit, are people going to say, dude, you don't know what you're talking about? Maybe, but I'm able to accept that. Well, the first thing that really popped out to me,
number 2 is solid for him.
Right. The first thing that really popped out to me with him was physical, big hitter. And I know, I mean, it doesn't feel like there's a huge difference between 5'11 and a half and like 6 foot like Banks is, or, but there is between like 6'1 and 6'2 and 5'11 and a half. But, usually if you don't hit that 6 foot range, especially with the women, you're considered too short, right? But I thought he played a lot bigger than he looked. And the dude is physical in every aspect of the game. Big hitter, sticky in coverage. If someone catches the ball in front of him, he's going to lay down the hammer on him. I mean, I didn't think he was blazing fast, but I thought he was obviously fast enough. I mean, as he showed. And again, you're talking about another Big Ten guy here and that defense this year, the Illinois defense, believe me, I know I watched the Gophers play against them. They couldn't do anything. That defense was really solid this year in the Big Ten, where he's playing against some tough competition. I believe they were ranked. I think they got as high as like 24th or 23rd or something during the season. So we play against a lot of really good competition. And I mean, I see why this guy is up there as being one of the probably like the top corner in the draft, was what a lot of people think. I still think he has some ways to go. I mean, but still, like, all the intangibles are there. And I know when we get into the stats, I'll probably eat my words, because you're gonna. I know you said when you look at all his deep stats on PFF, he shows you some stuff. But I definitely am a fan of Devin Witherspoon. I just love how he plays. He's physical, and that's what you got to. That's what you love.
He's a guy that, like, you're not gonna have to really bring up his combine stuff, because he didn't work out at the combine, so we don't really know what his athleticism is, because he's letting his performance on the field talk for him, and he didn't do the combine. So I don't blame him at all. Though it's always nice for guys like us to know how athletic this dude is, because like you said, maybe he did look a little shorter. But I'll bring up his stats here. And one thing, obviously, we'll go into it. One thing from a negative standpoint, actually, wait, never mind. Actually, take that back. So anyways, his stats are insane. So I really liked his tape. He is physical. He was one of the most impressive hitters that I watched out of all this tape. And you saw, and great coverage. There's a lot you didn't get to see a ton of him, I think, in coverage and stuff. I feel like he's a guy that nobody really wanted to even pass to that often. 62 targets, only allowed 22 receptions. So that shows that right there. But 92 overall grade with a 90.5 coverage grade, 3 interceptions this year. Like you were like before, he just kept getting better and better per year with that massive jump from last year to this year. But those coverage grades, man, that's what's insane. And when looking at these cornerbacks, that's all I can think with Forbes. Like, I love playmaking. That's kind of what we got Andrew Booth for last year, was more of the interceptions than as far as coverage, I think, in my opinion. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But Devin Witherspoon still had 3 interceptions, but I'm just caring about the coverage grade in the Flores defense, knowing that's what he wants there. So obviously, I don't think Witherspoon's going to be there for us, but it'd be crazy if he was. 18 forced incompletions, second in the college behind Tomlinson. 11 coverage drops, 12.5 average depth of target, 5 missed tackles, which is interesting. That's one thing about him, I would say, too, is he does lay the hammer on his tackles. He's a fantastic tackle, but I think sometimes his tackling probably could be a little bit erratic at times, because he is trying to make these big hits, and maybe he can miss some tackles there. But
yeah, I mean, if the Vikings found a way to get that guy, I think he fit very nicely into the Brian Flores scheme. But as you said, I don't see that happening at this point.
Yeah. And then obviously I already gave my whole lowdown on Christian Gonzalez, but he's my second overall pick, who makes our first picks probably pretty obvious. And we'll jump into that with Deonte Banks. I just gave you my whole Devin Witherspoon's thing. So he's my number 1 corner in this draft. Casey, I'll let you take Banks away here.
Yeah. And honestly, I know you already said a lot of things about Deonte Banks that I agree with. Like the size, the speed was something that I really liked with him. Physical. The guy's an absolute the guy plays physical. What was his size? What was his size? We
6
got
foot 197.
Right? Yeah, like again, just big, fast. I thought he was very instinctual. Could break on the ball well. I thought he played pretty solid in all aspects of the defense, man coverage, and as well as zone. Great tackler. Just a lot of the things you said, I 100% agree with. And that speed, what did he have? A 4.35 40, right? That's
4.35.
Absolutely nuts again. And
that's
doing that, as I said, at 197 is pretty spectacular. So everything that you kind of said about him, I agree with. I read, and I don't know if this is true, I might get corrected on this, but I read somewhere that, playing at Maryland, he had to play against Ohio State, that he didn't allow any touchdowns to the big time Ohio State receivers, and really held his own the best he could against, as we always talk about when we talk about receivers in Ohio State with quarterbacks and everything, that team is stacked at wide receiver.
Yeah,
like Marvin Harrison Jr., they were saying this year he'd be the number one wide receiver taken. And Deonte Banks having to go against a team like that and standing his ground is spectacular. So, and I think the thing with him is it was the little bit bigger height and the speed that I really love here, while still maintaining the 195 or 197 weight. So,
and we just agreed that even looking at his tape, man, we really liked him. I mean, I had him as my second favorite based off just that. I liked Witherspoon a little bit more than that, but you had him as like your top guy. And then I had Gonzalez and Joey Porter. And then I don't remember, I didn't have Forbes as my fifth. I forgot who it was, but just from and that's before really digging into their stats and stuff. Like we start with tape. We looking at that and we make a decision on how we feel with that player based on that. And then we add the stats, then we add the combine, and then we make an overall decision. And if that guy stuck out to us both on tape. So you mix that with the athleticism and even some of his stats and even the one that you mentioned with Ohio State, man. And I think that guy could be a beast player. If any of those top four, Forbes, I am a little scared. I would love to get him later type of thing, but his 166 is pretty like really skinny, especially after having Dancer, who's 180 something and 6'2". But man, that 4.35 out of him and stuff is crazy. But if we were able to get any of these four guys are sitting there at our pick, our top four at 23, I definitely would take a chance on one of these guys. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to go cornerback. I don't want Cam Smith. I think he was up there for me, but Cam,
later.
I think
not like first round, no, but like later
first round later. If none of these four are there in the first round, I say we wait past corner. And I'm still I don't know, maybe if I don't know who I'd pick if Porter's there and Cansey's there or something like that. I don't know what I would go with that,
tough.
but
it'd be tough. We'd have to see what Kwesi would do in that situation. But
yeah,
man.
But we're going quarterback, so it doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah, right. But either way, though, a ton of quarterback or cornerback talent in this draft. The Vikings do need to dip in at some point. Whether it be third, fourth, fifth, wherever they have picks, they're going to need to try to dig into this class. As we talked about, there are some deeper guys like Hodges Tomlinson, like Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. Like the Eli Ricks and Cam Smith. Those two guys look pretty solid as well. So there's talent all throughout this draft, plus a couple other guys that we've been looking at as well that might be like kind of deep picks. But yeah, I mean, I do think the Vikings need to dig into this cornerback pool.
Yeah, we have to do something. I mean, obviously we only have 5 picks right now, so it's going to be interesting how we roll it out. I mean, if it goes anything like our mock drafts lately, it's looking pretty good. So Kwesi just has to take notes.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as long as when he gives up those picks for next year to go get Will Levis, then as long as he doesn't give up picks for this year, we'll be all good. But anyway, that'll do it for our top 5 corners in the 2023 draft. We want to know your guys' top 5. Drop those down in the comment section, and we'll see you guys next time on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikes.